A millionaire CEO kisses his new cleaning lady to avoid an arranged marriage, and what she did next surprised everyone. Before we start the story, tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy. Everything's set, Alexander. The dinner is Friday night, and the engagement will be officially announced. Victoria already had the dress made. Those were Eleanor Montgomery's first words as she walked into her son's mansion, without knocking, without warning. Like always, Alexander, who was sitting on the couch reviewing contracts, slowly looked up, like someone who'd just been told they'd be stabbed with a salad fork. "What engagement?" he asked, squinting. "Yours, obviously, with Victoria. It's past time for you to grow up and stop rejecting anything that involves the word marriage." "I never agreed to that engagement. I've said that already." "Alexander, please. You're 28, and you have an empire to protect. Marrying Victoria is the smartest move to unite both families. You two look good together, she's presentable, and I already have a girlfriend." Eleanor's expression changed as if her son had just said he was opening a crochet shop on a pirate ship. "What? That's right, I'm in a relationship, for a while now, and it's serious. And who is she?" Eleanor asked, arms crossed and chin raised. Alexander looked away for a moment, and that's when he saw her. Mia Gonzalez, cleaning the chandelier in the front hallway, rubber gloves on, a cloth tied around her head, humming some song with earbuds hanging around her neck, and making funny faces. "Her?" Alexander said, pointing at Mia. "What?" "She's my girlfriend," he repeated, walking straight toward Mia. "Alexander, don't you dare. Too late." Mia turned around and didn't even have time to ask who's what. Before she felt Alex's lips on hers, he kissed her, on the mouth. For real. For 3 seconds, Mia froze. By 4, she wondered if she'd fallen, hit her head, and was dreaming. On the 5th second, she pushed Alexander so hard he stumbled on his own ego. "Are you crazy?" she shouted, ripping off her gloves and throwing them on the floor. "I can explain." "No, you can't. You kissed me. In front of your mother. And I haven't even finished cleaning the chandelier." Eleanor stood there, watching in total denial. This is a bad joke. Alexander Montgomery, you've completely lost your mind." "A cleaning lady? An amazing woman, actually," he replied, still trying to compose himself. "A woman with a cloth on her head? It's called real life. Ever heard of it?" Eleanor didn't answer. She just grabbed her designer purse with the elegance of an offended queen and stormed off, her heels hitting the marble like each step was a courtroom sentence. Once the door slammed shut, Mia crossed her arms and stared at Alexander. "Are you going to tell me now, or should I start guessing?" "I needed a way out. My mother's trying to force me to marry Victoria Sterling, and I snapped. I said I was already dating someone, and you were right there." "Oh, of course. I was just hanging like a bat from the chandelier, so why not make me your fake girlfriend?" "It was a spur-of-the-moment thing." "A spur-of-the-moment thing? If you suddenly felt like starting a new company, fine. But kissing someone out of nowhere? That's not impulse. That's invading someone's cheeks. And life. Look, I'm sorry. Really. I'll pay a bonus for the trouble." "Bonus? Bonus." She grabbed the rag from the bucket and threw it at him. "Shove that bonus where the sun doesn't shine, Mr. Silvertie." She turned and stormed off toward the service wing, fuming. Alexander stood frozen, the rag slipping off his shoulder, heart slightly racing. And it wasn't because of his mother. In the back laundry room, Donna, Mia's coworker, was folding sheets when she saw her walk in, hair messy, face flushed. "Did something happen?" "Something? The boss kissed me." "Huh?" "That's right, in the middle of the lobby, with his mother watching. He said he needed to escape an arranged marriage, and I was a good excuse." "And how did you feel?" Mia huffed. "Angry, furious, confused, and the kiss?" Mia went quiet for 2 seconds. "Tasted like expensive toothpaste and a bit of arrogance." "Did you like it?" "I liked wanting to punch him, but I admit, maybe, just maybe, my heart skipped a beat. But it was just a reflex, like sneezing, I know. And if he comes back again with this girlfriend and kiss thing, I'll smack him with a mop, with flair." "Absolutely." They both burst out laughing. On the other side of the mansion, Alexander was watching through the hallway camera, a slight smile on his lips. Maybe, just maybe, that cleaning lady was more interesting than any heiress in a custom-made dress. The next day, Mia showed up to work earlier than usual, but with twice the grumpiness. With each step, she promised herself she wouldn't even look at that impulsive CEO's face. But that promise lasted exactly 35 seconds, until she saw Alexander Montgomery leaning against the kitchen doorframe, coffee in hand, with a smirk on his face. "Good morning, temporary girlfriend. Sleep well?" he teased. "I dreamt I was shoving a duster into your arrogance. Want me to draw you a picture? I'm not your girlfriend. What happened yesterday was your meltdown. Count me out." Alexander stood up straight, placed his mug on the counter, and walked toward her. "Mia, listen. I know it was weird. Okay, it was bizarre. But I have a real problem with this engagement thing, and now my mother believes I'm in a relationship with you. If you agree to pretend to be my girlfriend for 1 week, just until I sort this out, I'll pay you." "You'll what?" Mia crossed her arms. "You'll pay me to pretend to be your girlfriend? What do you think I am? An actress in some last-minute romance movie? No, I think you're smart enough to see a good opportunity." "Oh, sure, because pretending to be in love with a bossy, arrogant CEO full of rules is every woman's dream, right?" Alexander sighed. "Are you telling me you couldn't use a little extra money?" "Maybe I could, but I could also use a massage chair and pistachio ice cream every Friday. That doesn't mean I go around making deals with billionaires who think the world revolves around their tie." He looked at her for a few seconds. Mia stood firm, arms crossed and chin up, like she was saying, "I may be poor, but I'm not for sale." "Okay," Alexander said. "If you change your mind, let me know." He walked out of the kitchen without another word, leaving behind a heavy air of bruised pride and the smell of expensive coffee. Hours later, Mia got a call from her mother. Her younger brother, Nico, was back in the hospital. His heart condition had gotten worse. The surgery needed to happen by the end of the month, and the waiting list only moved faster when your wallet did the talking. She hung up slowly, eyes filled with tears. That evening, while mopping the hallway, she saw Alexander sitting by the fireplace, phone in hand. He looked up when he saw her. "Is the offer still on the table?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "Until Sunday. $5,000 for the week. It goes straight into your account." "10,000, Mia said. "What? 10, and with a signed contract. No surprise kisses, no touching without permission. And I have conditions." Alexander leaned back in the chair. "Go ahead." "Rule 1, don't boss me around. I'm not your secretary. I'm not your assistant. I'm not your fancy little pet. All right? Rule 2, no comments about how I look. Not good, not bad. And don't try to dress me up like some personal makeover project. You really have a list, don't you? Rule 3, I'm doing this for my brother. If you're disrespectful, rude, or try to humiliate me, the deal's off, right then and there. Got it?" Alexander looked at her, then he reached out his hand. "Deal." Mia shook it firmly. "Great. Now get out of my way. The floor's not going to clean itself." The next day, the relationship rehearsals began. "We need to practice how we act around others," Alexander said out in the garden. "Start by calling me honey. Would you prefer darling or little devil dressed as a prince?" "Honey is fine," she smiled. "Fake, elegant, defiant. Honey, have you seen my mop? I think I left it in the closet along with my patience." Alexander took a deep breath. "Mia, please, let's try to be convincing." "Of course, sweetheart. After all, who wouldn't believe in a fairy tale romance between a cleaning lady in yellow gloves and a billionaire who's never worn the same pair of socks twice? You know what your problem is? A natural gift for sarcasm? A real issue with authority." She stepped closer with a mocking smile. "And you've got a real problem with people who don't bow down. That's why you're annoyed." "I wasn't born to lower my head." Alexander stayed silent for a few seconds. The truth was, no matter how frustrating she could be, he was starting to admire that fearless attitude. Even if he wouldn't admit it, not even under torture. 3 days after the deal, Alexander walked into the kitchen, looking like he was about to announce the end of the world next Tuesday. "We have a dinner tonight," he said, nervously adjusting his tie. Mia stopped organizing the cleaning supplies and looked at him. "We who? Because if it's you and your guilty conscience, feel free to go without me. You and me. With my family. My mother insisted on getting to know the girlfriend. Oh, of course, because pretending to be your girlfriend in this giant mansion wasn't enough. Now I have to perform on the main stage?" Alexander sighed. "It's just one dinner, Mia. You eat, smile, make a few polite jokes, and that's it. Polite jokes? You do know me, right? My sense of humor didn't come with a manners filter. Please, it's important. She looked at him for a few seconds. There was something vulnerable in the way he asked, something that didn't match his usual controlled attitude. Fine. But if your mother looks at me like I'm a bug in her salad, I'll bite back. And you'll have to deal with the consequences. Deal. At 6 o'clock sharp, Mia came down the main staircase wearing dark jeans, a white top with a fun print, a simple jacket, and a pair of worn but clean boots. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, and the red lipstick was the final touch. Alexander waited in the hall wearing a dark suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. When he saw her, he hesitated for a moment. You look fine, Alex said, offering his arm. Thanks for the overwhelming enthusiasm, she replied as she stepped down the last few steps. I hope your family isn't expecting a fashion show. They're going to love you. Alexander lied, offering his arm again. Sure. Just like a cat loves a cold bath. The restaurant Eleanor Montgomery had picked was the kind of place where even the menu seemed to judge your shoes. White linen tablecloths, waiters who looked like they had PhDs in etiquette, and a grand piano playing softly in the corner. Alexander and Mia arrived first. She looked around with a mix of curiosity and discomfort. This place is so fancy it actually fixed my posture, she whispered. Don't worry, it's just expensive food on tiny plates. With this decor, I bet even the water has a last name. 5 minutes later, Eleanor Montgomery made her grand entrance, followed by a tall man with graying hair and a flawless blonde in a red dress who looked like she'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. Alexander. Eleanor greeted her son with a kiss on the cheek as cold as a business transaction. And this must be Mia. Mrs. Montgomery, Mia said, extending her hand with a polite smile. Eleanor looked at the hand as if it were a venomous snake, but shook it quickly. This is my husband, Robert Montgomery, and our dear friend, Victoria Sterling. Unlike his wife, Robert smiled warmly. A pleasure to meet you, Mia. Alexander told us you two met in a rather unusual way. Your son has a very unique way of making a first impression. Victoria stepped forward with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. What an interesting outfit, Mia. Vintage? Actually, it's from the latest Target collection. Clearance season, Mia replied with good humor. But thank you for the compliment. Your dress is beautiful too. Must have cost more than 6 months of my salary. Victoria's smile twitched slightly. During dinner, Eleanor attacked with the subtlety of a tank. So Mia, Alexander told us you work at the house. What exactly do you do? I handle the cleaning and organization. Basically, I make sure everything sparkles and smells nice. How practical, Eleanor said, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. Very. Especially when you work with people who make a lot of messes, Mia replied, looking straight at Victoria. Robert chuckled quietly, trying to cover it with a sip of wine. And your plans for the future? Eleanor continued. Do you plan to stay in cleaning? For now, yes. It's honest work and I support my family with it. I see no problem in that. Of course not, Victoria said sweetly. It's admirable how some people can be content with simplicity. Mia chewed slowly before answering. That's true. I'm easily content. I don't need much to be happy. I guess that's a talent not everyone has. Alexander watched the back and forth with growing admiration. Mia wasn't intimidated by anyone. And how did you two fall in love? Robert asked, genuinely interested. Mia and Alexander quickly glanced at each other. It was instant, Alexander said. Like lightning, Mia added. Only wetter. Wetter? Eleanor asked, frowning. I spilled water on him my first day on the job. It was like love at first splash. Robert laughed out loud, and even Alexander gave a genuine smile. How romantic, Victoria murmured, her sarcasm obvious. I know, right? Mia replied, pretending not to notice the tone. You don't even see stories like this in the movies. Only in real life. Eleanor leaned forward slightly. And you really think you can fit into our social circle? Mrs. Montgomery, I'm not trying to fit in anywhere. I am who I am. Whether that works for you or not, that's not my problem. Your son accepts me as I am, and that's what matters. Alexander felt something strange in his chest. Admiration, maybe, or something deeper. Well said, Robert said, raising his glass. Here's to authenticity. Eleanor did not raise her glass. After dinner, while waiting by the cars in the parking lot, Eleanor pulled Alexander aside. If you want to ruin our family's name, do it on your own. But her She won't last long here, she whispered, eyes flashing with controlled anger. Mom. Don't call me Mom when you're acting like a fool. This girl isn't from our world, Alexander, and the sooner you realize that, the better. Across the parking lot, Victoria approached Mia. You did well tonight, she said with fake kindness. But that was just the warm-up. Thanks for the warning, Mia replied. But if you think I'm going to run just because the competition showed up, you're wrong. I'm not afraid of a porcelain princess. Victoria gave a cold smile and walked away. In the car, on the way back, Alexander was silent for a long time. You were amazing, he finally said. I was just myself. If that's amazing, your standards are very low. That's not it. It's just, you didn't let yourself be put down. Not even for a second. Mia glanced at him sideways. Did you expect me to bow down? I don't know what I expected. But it wasn't that. And what was that? Alexander hesitated. Brave, authentic, interesting. Careful, boss. At this rate, you might actually end up liking me for real. He smiled but didn't answer. Because honestly, that possibility was starting to not seem so impossible after all. The morning after the disastrous dinner, Mia arrived at the mansion determined to keep things normal. After all, pretending to be Alexander Montgomery's girlfriend was just a temporary job, and the house wasn't going to clean itself. She was in the kitchen organizing utensils when she noticed the old toaster making a strange noise every time someone tried to use it. Small sparks jumped from the frayed cord, and she knew it was only a matter of time before someone got hurt. One more problem to fix, she murmured, grabbing a screwdriver from the tool cabinet. Mia had always been good with repairs. Since she was little, she learned that when something broke at home, you either fixed it yourself or went without. There wasn't money to call a technician for every little problem. She unplugged the toaster and began examining the cord. The problem seemed simple, just a few loose wires that needed reconnecting. Easy fix. I'm just going to take a quick look here, she whispered, unscrewing the back panel. What Mia didn't realize was the outlet was faulty. Even with the toaster unplugged, there was still current running through the cord. When she touched the exposed wires with the wet screwdriver, the shock was instant. An electric jolt ran through her arm, making her scream and fall backward, knocking over a metal pan that crashed loudly to the floor. Alexander was in his office when he heard the noise. First the scream, then the crash. He dropped his papers and ran toward the kitchen, his heart racing for reasons he couldn't explain. He found Mia on the floor, holding her left arm and breathing hard. She was pale, and he could see a small red burn on her hand. Mia, what happened? He knelt beside her, gently touching her shoulder. The toaster was broken. I thought I could fix it, she said between short breaths, clearly in pain. Alexander looked at the broken appliance and exposed wires. You got an electric shock. Can you get up? I think so. She tried to stand but wobbled. The shock had left her legs weak. Without hesitation, Alexander lifted her in his arms, ignoring her protests completely. Hey, I can walk. Don't be stubborn now, Mia. I'm taking you to the hospital. Hospital? It was just a little shock. No need for all this drama. Your hand is burned and you can barely stand. We're going to the hospital. End of discussion. During the 15-minute drive to the emergency room, Alexander drove with a tension he hadn't felt in years. He glanced at Mia in the passenger seat every time they stopped at a red light, checking if she was okay. Stop looking at me like I'm about to die, she said, noticing his concern. I've had worse shocks trying to fix my mother's apartment shower. That doesn't comfort me at all. You're way too tense for someone just playing the part of a fake girlfriend. Alexander was silent. She was right. The worry he felt went far beyond any contract obligation. At the hospital, he insisted on staying with her in the exam room, even when she said she could go alone. He stood by the bed while the doctor checked her burn and asked questions about the accident. Lucky the shock was quick, the doctor said. The burn is superficial. I'll apply some ointment and dress it with gauze. It'll be good as new in a week. After treating Mia's hand and giving care instructions, the doctor left, leaving them alone in the room. See, I told you it wasn't serious, Mia said, shaking her bandaged hand. You could have been seriously hurt. Why didn't you call me to fix the toaster? Because I know how to fix things. Always have. and because you'd probably call a technician who'd charge $200 to replace a 5-cent wire. Alexander smiled lightly. You have a very practical view of life. When you grow up without money, you learn to be practical. Either you solve problems yourself, or you go without what you need. On the way back to the mansion, the silence was different, less tense, more thoughtful. Tell me about your childhood, Alexander said suddenly. Mia looked at him, surprised. Why do you want to know? Curiosity. You always talk about handling things on your own, about not depending on anyone. That comes from somewhere. She was quiet for a few moments, staring out the window. My dad left when I was 8. Just packed up his things one morning and never came back. He left my mom with 3 kids and a pile of bills to pay. I'm sorry. I was 2 back then. My mom worked 2 jobs for years to keep us going. I learned to cook, take care of my little brothers, fix what broke, because I had to. There was no choice. Alexander listened quietly, beginning to understand where all that fierce determination came from. And you never got angry? About having to grow up so fast? I did. A lot. Especially when I saw other kids complaining because their phone wasn't the newest model, while I was saving pennies to buy a new notebook. But anger doesn't pay bills, you know? How did you manage to keep a good mood with all that? Mia laughed, a genuine, warm sound. Believe it or not, my mom always said laughter was free. She said we could be poor, but didn't have to be bitter. That laughter was the one thing no one could take from us. Alexander felt something move in his chest, an admiration beyond looks, beyond the first attraction. Your mom sounds like a wise woman. She is. She used to say rich men are like Belgian chocolate ice cream, looks irresistible, but in the end makes your stomach sick. Alexander laughed, genuinely. For the first time since they met, he really laughed at one of her jokes. So, am I Belgian chocolate ice cream? Worse, you're Belgian chocolate ice cream with a gold coating, pretty to look at, impossible to eat, and probably toxic. He laughed even louder. What a terrible comparison. But necessary, right? When they arrived at the mansion, Alexander insisted on helping her out of the car, even though she protested she was perfectly fine. You're not working today, he said firmly. Rest. I'll talk to Donna to cover your tasks. Alexander, it was just a small shock. I can... No. That's an order. Oh, now you're the boss again? When it comes to your safety, yes. They stopped at the employee entrance, and Mia turned to look at him. Thank you for taking me to the hospital, for waiting, for caring. No need to thank me. Yes, I do. I'm not used to this. Used to what? Someone caring about me. Usually, I'm the one taking care of others. Alexander looked at her for a moment. In the soft afternoon light, with her hand bandaged and a tired but genuine smile, Mia seemed less like a defiant cleaner, and more a woman. A strong, brave woman who sometimes also needed care. Mia, don't fall for me, boss, she interrupted with a mischievous smile. Because I'm allergic to rich men. Really? I swear, I break out in red spots, start sneezing, and lose my mind completely. It's a serious medical condition. Alexander smiled. What are the symptoms? First, I start thinking diamonds are pretty. Then I begin liking food with French names. And at the final stage, I start believing champagne is better than soda. Sounds serious. Very. So it's better to keep your distance. For your own safety, of course. She winked and went inside, leaving Alexander standing at the door with a smile on his face and a strange feeling in his chest. Maybe she was right about being allergic to rich men. But he was starting to think he might have a similar condition when it came to stubborn, funny cleaners. And unlike her, he wasn't sure he wanted to be cured. That night, while working in his office, Alexander found himself thinking about the way Mia had talked about her childhood. Her mother, learning to handle things on her own. There was a strength in her he had never seen in any woman in his social circle. Victoria Sterling had never fixed anything in her life. She probably didn't even know how to change a light bulb. But Mia tried to fix a broken toaster because she believed she could solve the problem. He smiled, remembering the joke about Belgian chocolate ice cream. Maybe it was true. Maybe he really was toxic for someone like her. But for the first time in his life, Alexander Montgomery was willing to take the risk and find out. A week after the toaster accident, Alexander showed up in the kitchen wearing a suit even fancier than usual, with a look that mixed determination and nervousness. I need you to come with me to an event tonight, he announced, adjusting his shirt cuffs. Mia, who was preparing a snack, froze with a knife in her hand. What kind of event? The Chicago Business Association's charity gala. It's important for business, and my mother will be there. With Victoria. Oh, I get it. Time to show off the fake girlfriend to society. Exactly. Do you have a dress that would fit this kind of occasion? Mia laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Sure, Alexander. I keep a closet full of fancy dresses hidden in my one-bedroom apartment, right there between the cleaning uniforms and patched pajamas. He caught the sarcasm and looked embarrassed. Sorry, I'll take care of it. What's your size? Don't even think about buying me clothes. I'll figure it out. 4 hours later, Mia came down the mansion's stairs wearing a simple black dress borrowed from her sister-in-law. It wasn't luxurious, but it looked good on her. She had her hair in an elegant bun and wore subtle makeup. Alexander was waiting for her in the hall, and when he saw her, he stopped what he was doing. You look beautiful, he said, this time sounding sincere. Thank you. You look tolerable. He laughed. Just tolerable? I don't want to boost that ego anymore. The event was held at Chicago's most luxurious hotel. The room was decorated with white flowers, golden lights, and elegantly arranged tables. Men in tuxedos and women in expensive dresses moved around with champagne glasses, talking about business and charity. As soon as they walked in, Mia felt all eyes turn to them, or rather, to her, and they were not admiring looks. Relax, Alexander whispered, offering his arm. You belong here as much as anyone. Yeah, right, but thanks for trying to encourage me. They had barely taken their champagne glasses when Eleanor Montgomery appeared, followed by Victoria Sterling, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than Mia's car. Alexander, dear, Eleanor greeted, kissing her son's cheek without taking her eyes off Mia. What a surprise to see you here, Mia. Good evening, Mrs. Montgomery. The event is beautiful. Yes, isn't it? Of course, you probably aren't used to this kind of environment. Before Mia could answer, Victoria approached with a poisonous smile. Mia, that's an interesting dress. Vintage again? Actually, it's borrowed, but thanks for noticing. Your dress is lovely too. Must have cost enough to feed a family for a month. Victoria's smile faltered. During dinner, the barbs continued. Victoria made comments about people who don't know social etiquette, while Eleanor asked things like, have you been to events of this level before? In a tone that made it clear she knew the answer. Mia endured it all with dignity, responding with humor when she could and ignoring it when it wasn't worth it. But the limit came when they went to the women's restroom. Do you really think you can keep up this act? Victoria asked, reapplying her lipstick in the mirror. What act? Mia replied, washing her hands. Please, a cleaner dating Alexander Montgomery? Everyone here knows that's ridiculous. You're just a temporary distraction. Whether I'm temporary or not is none of your business. Of course it is. I've known Alexander for years. I know what he likes, what he needs, and it's definitely not a employee pretending to be something she's not. Mia turned to face her. You know what I find interesting, Victoria? You're so worried about me, you forgot to ask why Alexander chose a simple cleaner over a porcelain princess like you. Victoria blushed. When he gets tired of this childish game, I'll still be here, just like I've always been. Well, good for you. Must be comfortable living off hope. When they returned to the ballroom, Alexander immediately sensed that something had happened. Victoria's face was tense, and Mia seemed quieter than usual. Everything okay? He whispered to Mia. Perfectly. But it wasn't. For the rest of the evening, Alexander noticed how the other guests looked at Mia, how they whispered as she walked by, how they deliberately left her out of conversations. The breaking point came when a drunk businessman approached their table. Montgomery, so this is the famous girlfriend? He said loudly, attracting attention. Gotta admit, it's a big shift, from socialites to the help. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander slowly stood up, wearing an expression Mia had never seen before. What did you just say? Oh, come on, Alex. Everyone here knows who she is. No need to pretend. You're going to apologize now? Alexander, you don't have to, Mia murmured, touching his arm. Yes, I do. He stared coldly at the man. You just disrespected my girlfriend. That's unacceptable. Man, I was just apologizing or leaving, your choice. Realizing he had crossed a line, the man mumbled a reluctant apology and walked away. Alexander sat back down, but Mia was already standing. "I'm going to get some air," she said, heading toward the terrace. He followed her. Out on the terrace, with the city lights glowing in the distance, Mia leaned on the railing, taking deep breaths. "Thank you," she said as he approached, "for standing up for me in there." "No need to thank me. That guy was completely out of line." He was, but he wasn't entirely wrong either. "What do you mean?" Mia turned to face him. "Alexander, let's be honest. I don't belong in that world. I never will. And you know that. That doesn't give them the right to treat you badly." "No, it doesn't. But it doesn't mean things are going to change either." They stood in silence for a few moments, looking out at the city. "Why did you do it?" Mia asked. "Why did you defend me?" Alexander hesitated. Because they were wrong. And you didn't deserve that." "That's the only reason?" He looked at her, and there was something different in his eyes. "No, not the only one." "Then what?" "I don't know how to explain it, Mia. You came into my life and turned everything upside down. In a good way, in a frustrating way, in a way that's got me all confused." She stepped a little closer. "Confused how?" "Confused like, why do you make me want to laugh and punch a wall at the same time?" Mia smiled. "Maybe because you've never met anyone who wasn't afraid of you." "Maybe." They were very close now. Alexander could smell her perfume, see the tiny freckles on her nose the makeup hadn't fully covered. "Mia." "Alexander." For a moment, the world stopped. They leaned in toward each other, and Mia could feel his breath on her face. "There you are." Eleanor's voice made them jump apart. "The event's ending. Time to go." Alexander sighed, frustrated. "Let's go," he said to Mia, offering his arm. In the car, the silence between them was heavy with unspoken words. Both knew something had almost happened out on that terrace. Something that would change everything. And both knew that sooner or later, they would have to face it. 2 days after the gala, Victoria Sterling was in her office executing what she believed was her most brilliant plan yet. She had spent years watching Alexander, learning his weaknesses, and now she had finally found his Achilles heel. That defiant little cleaner who had done something no woman before her had, genuinely caught his attention. Victoria picked up the phone and dialed Marcus Webb, a businessman known for his shady reputation and his willingness to do favors in exchange for future benefits. "Marcus, it's Victoria. I need a favor, one that could be very profitable for both of us." 2 hours later, Marcus called the Montgomery mansion, asking to speak with Mia Gonzalez. He said he had heard about her skills and organization and wanted to hire her for a private job at his hotel. A job that would pay $500 for just 2 hours of work. For Mia, still thinking about her brother's surgery, the offer sounded like a blessing. "I just need you to organize a few documents in my office at the hotel. Nothing major. Room 204, Grand Chicago Hotel. Today at 3 o'clock. Mia accepted without hesitation. What Mia didn't know was that Victoria had hired a photographer to be in the hotel hallway at the exact moment she walked into the room. And Marcus had been told to wear a bathrobe, as if he had just stepped out of the shower. When she arrived, at 3:15 p.m., Alexander received an envelope in his office. Inside were 3 photos. Mia entering room 204, Mia talking to Marcus Webb at the door while he wore a robe, and 1 photo where it looked like they were getting close to each other. Along with the photos was a note. "Thought you should know the kind of woman you've been defending. A concerned friend." Alexander stared at the photos, feeling sick to his stomach. First came disbelief. Then anger, and finally, a kind of pain he hadn't expected. When Mia returned to the mansion at 5 o'clock, she found Alexander waiting for her in the hall, holding the photos, with an expression on his face she had never seen before. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice far too controlled. "Working." "Why do you ask?" He tossed the photos onto the coffee table. "Working where exactly?" Mia looked down at the photos, and the blood drained from her face. "Alexander, I can explain." "Can you? Great. Then explain why you were in Marcus Webb's hotel room this afternoon." "He hired me to organize some documents. That's all it was." "Documents? In his hotel room, with him in a bathrobe?" "He said he had just come back from the gym. I didn't know he'd be dressed like that. I didn't even go inside properly. I left right away." "Mia, please, don't treat me like a fool." "I'm not. I'm telling you the truth." Alexander turned his back on her. You know what's pathetic? I actually believed you were different, that there was something real between us. The words hit Mia like a punch to the stomach. Alexander, you can't be serious. You really think I don't know what to think. These pictures speak for themselves. These pictures don't show anything. I was there for 5 minutes. 5 minutes you didn't bother to mention when you got back. Because I didn't think it mattered. It was just a side job. With a married man. In his hotel room. Mia felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. You know what hurts most, Alexander? It's not that you didn't believe me. It's that you didn't even ask. You already judged me before hearing my side. The evidence is clear, Mia. Evidence? Or were you just looking for a reason to end this before it got too real? Alexander turned to face her, and for a moment she saw doubt in his eyes, but the anger won. Maybe you're right. Maybe this never should have started. Mia took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. Fine, if that's what you think of me, then there's nothing more to say. She pulled the mansion key from her pocket and placed it on the table next to the photos. I quit, as your housekeeper and your fake girlfriend. Mia, wait. No, you made it very clear what you think of me. I may just be a housekeeper, but I have dignity, and I won't stay where I'm not respected. She walked toward the door but paused before leaving. Just one thing, Alexander. When you find out the truth, and you will, remember that you chose not to trust me. Remember that. The door closed behind her, leaving Alexander alone with the photos and a hollow feeling in his chest he didn't expect. 3 hours later, while Alexander was trying and failing to get any work done, his phone rang. It was James, his personal assistant. Mr. Montgomery? Sorry to bother you, but I thought you should know. I got a strange call from Marcus Webb. What about? He wanted to know if you were happy with the photos. Said Victoria Sterling asked him to call and confirm that everything had gone according to plan. Alexander felt the ground shift beneath him. Say that again. Sir, I think you were set up. Alexander hung up and rushed to his car. 20 minutes later, he was pounding on Marcus Webb's apartment door. When Marcus opened it and saw Alexander's face, all the color drained from his own. Montgomery, You're going to tell me exactly what happened today. Right now. 5 minutes later, Alexander had the full confession. Victoria had paid Marcus to stage the whole scene. She had hired the photographer. She had planned every detail. Mia had been an innocent victim. Back in his car, Alexander grabbed his phone, his hands shaking. He had made the biggest mistake of his life. He had doubted the one person who had never lied to him, who had never tried to manipulate him, who had always been exactly who she claimed to be. Mia's phone rang several times before she picked up. Hello? Mia? It's me. Silence on the other end. Mia, please don't hang up. What do you want, Alexander? Her voice sounded tired, hurt. I found out the truth about the photos, about Marcus. It was all set up by Victoria. More silence. Mia, you were right. I should have trusted you. I should have asked first, accused later. I ruined everything. Yes, you did. Please come back. Alexander, I know I don't deserve it. I know you have no reason to give me another chance. But I need you here. For what? To keep pretending to be your girlfriend? No. Because when you left, the house felt empty. And it wasn't about the cleaning or the order. It was about you. Your laugh in the kitchen. Your sarcastic remarks. The way you're never afraid to speak your mind. Mia stayed quiet for so long, Alexander thought she had hung up. Please, he said, with real desperation in his voice. Let me fix this. I'll think about it, she finally said. I understand. I'll call you tomorrow. The call ended, leaving Alexander alone in the car, his heart racing and a fragile hope growing that maybe, just maybe, he could earn back the trust of the one person who really mattered. For the first time in his life, Alexander Montgomery knew what it meant to miss someone. And it was a feeling he never wanted to have again. Alexander Montgomery had never driven to the south side of Chicago. His GPS usually led him to neighborhoods with French-sounding names and homes that looked like museums. But there he was, on a Thursday afternoon, searching for Mia's address, in an area where the houses were small, the sidewalks cracked, and kids played in the street on bikes that had seen better days. He stopped in front of a one-story house painted in faded blue. A small porch held neatly arranged potted plants, and a rocking chair that looked like it had a lot of stories. The iron gate was open, and he could hear voices and laughter coming from inside. Alexander checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. $1,000 suit, a watch worth more than most people's cars, Italian leather shoes. He looked like an outsider stepping into foreign territory. But Mia hadn't answered any of his calls since yesterday, and he knew he had to do this in person. He knocked on the screen door and a woman in her 50s appeared. She had Mia's same dark eyes and a warm but cautious smile. "Can I help you?" "Mrs. Gonzalez? I'm Alexander Montgomery. I work with Mia." The woman's expression changed instantly. "Oh, you're the boss." "Yes, ma'am. I'd like to speak with her if that's okay." Carmen Gonzalez looked him over head to toe as if she could see right through the expensive suit. "Maya!" she called into the house. "Your boss is here." A few seconds later, Mia appeared wearing faded jeans and a Chicago Bulls t-shirt. She looked surprised and not particularly happy. "Alexander, what are you doing here? I said I'd think about it." "I came to talk. Please, you haven't answered my calls, and I had to come." Carmen glanced between the two of them. "Well, since you're already here, come on in. I'm not leaving anyone out on the porch like some door-to-door salesman." "Mom, that's not necessary." "Mia Gonzalez, where are your manners? Come in, young man. I just made coffee." Alexander followed both women into the house. The living room was small but cozy, with furniture that had clearly been in the family for years. Family photos filled the walls, and there was a delicious smell of home-cooked food in the air. "Have a seat," Carmen said, pointing to the couch. "Mia tells me your house is bigger than our whole block." "Mom," Mia blushed, "I'm just curious. I've never met a millionaire before." A boy about 16 came in from the kitchen, thinner than he should have been for his age, but with a bright smile. "This must be the famous boss," he said, offering his hand. "I'm Nico. Thanks for giving my annoying sister a job." "Nice to meet you, Nico. Mia talks about you all the time. Hope it's the good stuff. She threatens me at least 3 times a day." Alexander gave his first real smile in days. "Only the good stuff, promise." Carmen brought in coffee, served in mismatched but clean cups. "So, Mr. Montgomery, what brings you to our humble home?" Alexander looked at Mia, who was sitting at the edge of an armchair, clearly uncomfortable. "I came to apologize to Mia. I made a terrible mistake, and—" "What kind of mistake?" Carmen asked, with the protective tone only a mother could use. "Mom, please." "I didn't believe her when I should have," Alexander said. "Someone set her up to make it look like she was doing something wrong, and I believed the fake evidence instead of trusting her." Carmen crossed her arms. "So now you want her to go back to working for you?" "Yes, but not just that. I want to make things right, because she didn't deserve what I did." Nico leaned forward. "What exactly did you do?" "Nico," Mia murmured. "No, let him answer. If he made my sister cry, I want to know why." Alexander looked at Mia, surprised. "You cried? That's not important." "Yes, it is," Carmen said. "Mia doesn't cry easily, not even when she broke her arm at 12. Alexander felt a deeper stab of guilt. "I'm sorry, I truly am." At that moment, a pot made a noise in the kitchen, and Carmen got up. "Dinner's almost ready. Do you eat chicken and rice, Mr. Montgomery?" Yes." "Great, stay for dinner. That way you two can talk properly." "Mom, he probably has other plans." "I'd love to stay," Alexander said quickly, "if it's no trouble." An hour later, Alexander was sitting at a small wooden table that barely fit 4 people, eating rice, roasted chicken, and salad on mismatched but clean plates. Carmen was telling embarrassing childhood stories about Mia. Nico talked about his plans to study engineering once his health improved, and Mia went back and forth between laughing and being mortified. "And then she decided she'd fix the iron all by herself," Carmen was saying. "She was 8 years old. Nearly electrocuted the whole house." "Seems like a pattern," Alexander said, looking at Mia. "She tried to fix my toaster last week." "And how did that go?" "She got shocked and I had to take her to the hospital." "Mia," Carmen and Nico said at the same time. "It wasn't that bad," Mia defended herself. After dinner, while Carmen and Nico went to the living room to watch their show, Mia started washing the dishes. Alexander stood up from the table. "Let me help." "You don't have to." "I want to." They stood side by side at the small sink, Alexander washing and Mia drying. It felt intimate in a way he wasn't used to. Simple, real. "Your family is amazing," he said. "They're all I've got. That's why I work so hard. That's why I take extra jobs, even when they turn out weird. Mia, about that. You really thought I was the kind of person who'd get involved with someone for money? Alexander stopped washing a plate. No, not logically, but when I saw those photos, I panicked because I was starting to feel something real for you. And it scared me. Mia stopped drying. Something real? Yes. And when I thought maybe you were just playing me, I chose to believe the lie rather than risk being a fool in love. In love? Alexander realized what he just said and looked away, unsure. Maybe. I don't know. You confuse me. Mia laughed, and it was a soft, genuine sound. You're strange, but you're starting to be a little less unbearable. That's it? That's a big step. A week ago, I thought you were completely unbearable. They finished the dishes in a comfortable silence. When Mia put away the last plate, Alexander gently touched her arm. Do you forgive me, truly? She looked at him for a long moment. One condition. What is it? Next time someone comes to you with stories about me, you ask me first, always. Deal. And one more thing. Go ahead. You're back to being just my boss. That's it. I'm done pretending to be your girlfriend. Alexander felt a twinge of disappointment. Why? Because it's getting too complicated. And because, if this ever turns into something real, I want it to be because you chose it, not because you needed a fake relationship to avoid an arranged marriage. He smiled. That makes sense? Good. So do you agree? I do. But can I ask one thing? Sure. If I do you choose it? Would you consider it? Mia smiled but didn't answer. Let's see if you can go 1 week without driving me crazy first. When Alexander left the Gonzalez home that night, he knew 3 things. First, that he had just met the most welcoming family he'd ever known. Second, that Mia Gonzalez was even more special than he had thought. And third, that he was completely, hopelessly falling for her. And this time, he wasn't afraid to admit it. The next morning, Mia returned to the Montgomery mansion with a strange feeling in her chest. It was like coming back to a familiar place that had quietly changed while she was gone. Alexander met her at the door, wearing jeans and a casual shirt, a rare sight that almost made her ask if he was feeling okay. Good morning, he said with a hesitant smile. Good morning, boss, she answered, stressing the last word. About that, I've got a problem. Mia sighed. What kind of problem now? My mother planned another dinner for Saturday with Victoria and her whole family. Apparently our reconciliation needs to be celebrated publicly. Reconciliation? She thinks we broke up and got back together, which technically is true. Mia crossed her arms. Alexander, I told you I didn't want to pretend to be your girlfriend anymore. I know, but it's just one more time. After that, I'll tell her the truth. I promise. And what if she freaks out? Let her. I should have faced this from the start instead of dragging you into it. Mia studied him. Something about him was different. Less arrogance, more vulnerability. All right, but this is the last time, and no drama this time. No drama. That afternoon, while Mia was organizing books in the library, Alexander showed up at the door with an almost shy look on his face. Want to see something? That depends. Is it cool or is it weird? A little of both. He led her to a door she had never noticed before, hidden behind a bookshelf. When he opened it, it revealed a staircase leading to a spacious basement. What is this? My lab. Mia walked down the stairs and stood in awe. The space was filled with workbenches, electronic equipment, strange-looking devices, and whiteboards covered in formulas and sketches. You have a secret lab in your house? It's not secret, just private. What do you do down here? Alexander walked to one of the benches and picked up a small device that looked like a remote control. Inventions. Mostly devices that help make life easier for people with disabilities. This one, for example, he showed her the device, is a controller that can be operated just with eye movement for people with limited mobility. Mia held it carefully. That's amazing. Does it really work? Want to try it? For the next 20 minutes, Alexander explained how his inventions worked. He showed her a door-opening system for people in wheelchairs, an app that translated sign language in real time, and a prototype of a smart cane for the visually impaired. Why haven't you ever talked about this? Mia asked, genuinely impressed. Because most people wouldn't understand. They just see the CEO of a tech company, not the guy who likes fixing things. Like me with the toaster. Exactly. except you almost electrocuted yourself and I wear safety gear." They laughed together and Mia felt something shift in her chest. "You're full of surprises, you know that?" "So are you. Who would have thought a cleaning lady would make me question everything in my life?" They looked at each other for a moment, until Mia looked away. "Let's go back upstairs. I still have work to do." That evening, Mia was finishing cleaning the kitchen when she heard music coming from the terrace. It was soft, instrumental music. Curious, she went to check. Alexander was on the terrace, adjusting a small sound system. He had lit a few candles and placed 2 glasses of wine on a small table. "What is this?" "Practice," he said. "For Saturday. They'll probably expect to see us dance together. We need to look convincing." "Oh, right. Practice." But there was something in the way he said it that didn't sound like just practice. "Do you know how to dance?" he asked. "A little. My mom taught me when I was little. And you?" "Mandatory lessons in childhood, part of the air education package." Alexander held out his hand. "May I?" Mia hesitated for a moment before taking it. He gently pulled her closer, placing one hand on her waist and lacing the fingers of his other hand with hers. They started moving slowly to the music. Alexander was a good dancer, guiding her gently across the terrace, under the stars and candlelight. "You dance well," he said softly. "So do you. Those expensive lessons paid off." "It's not the lessons. No, it's the partner." Mia looked at him, and there was something intense in his eyes that made her swallow hard. "Alexander, Mia, I need to tell you something." "What?" They stopped dancing, but he didn't let go of her. "What I feel for you, I've never felt for anyone before. You barely know me. I know enough. I know your courage, your loyalty to your family, your sense of humor. I know how you're not afraid of anyone or anything. I know how you make me want to be a better man." "Alexander, stop." "Why?" "Because you're confusing gratitude with something else." "It's not gratitude, Mia. It's more than that." He leaned a little closer and she could feel his breath on her face. "I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. Mia's heart raced, but so did a wave of panic. I need to go." She pulled away quickly, leaving Alexander alone on the terrace. In her small room in the staff quarters, Mia sat on the bed and covered her face with her hands. Her mind was spinning. For weeks, she had convinced herself this was just a job, that Alexander Montgomery was just her temporary boss, that she was there for Nico's surgery money, and that all of it, every bit, was pretend. But when he looked at her that way, when he laughed at her jokes, when he showed her his secret lab like he was sharing a piece of his soul, when he said he was falling in love. "The problem is, I'm starting to really like him," she admitted to herself. And that terrified her, because Alexander Montgomery lived in a completely different world. A world of mansions and gala events, of million-dollar deals and family expectations. A world where a Latina cleaning lady from the south side of Chicago didn't make sense. Sooner or later, he would realize that. Sooner or later, reality would hit, and he'd choose someone like Victoria Sterling. Someone suitable. Someone from his world. And when that happened, Mia knew her heart would break into pieces. Because no matter how much she tried to deny it, no matter how much she wanted to keep things simple and professional, the truth was, she was falling in love too. And that was the scariest thing that had ever happened to her. Out on the terrace, Alexander was still standing where she had left him, looking out at the city lights. He knew he'd scared Mia. He knew he had probably said too much, too soon. But he also knew that every word he'd said was true. Mia Gonzalez had come into his life like a whirlwind, messing everything up, questioning everything, making him laugh, making him angry, and making him feel things he never thought he could. And now he had to find a way to convince her that it was real, that they could work, despite all the differences, despite all the obstacles, because for the first time in his life, Alexander Montgomery had found something worth fighting for. And he wasn't going to give up without trying. The bomb dropped on a Friday morning when Eleanor Montgomery showed up at the mansion with Victoria Sterling at her side, and with an expression that promised war if anyone pushed back. Alexander was having breakfast when the two of them walked into the dining room like generals heading into battle. "Good morning, Alexander," Eleanor said, kissing her son's cheek with calculated coldness. "Victoria has some wonderful news to share." Victoria smiled, and there was something triumphant in her eyes. "Alexander, darling, I spoke to my father yesterday. He's willing to invest $50 million in Montgomery Tech, but of course that would only happen if our families were officially united." Alexander nearly choked on his coffee. "Excuse me?" Eleanor sat down gracefully. "It's simple, Alexander. The company needs capital for international expansion. The Sterling family is willing to provide that capital. All we need is to formalize the engagement. I already said I'm not marrying Victoria. And I already said you need to stop acting like a child," Eleanor snapped back. "We've set the date. December 15th. The official announcement will be in Time magazine, and the ceremony will take place at St. Patrick's Cathedral." Alexander stood up from the table. "You set a date without asking me?" "We did ask," Victoria said, pulling a tablet from her bag. "We checked your calendar. You're free that weekend." "Victoria, this is insane. I'm not marrying you." Eleanor slammed her hand on the table. "Alexander Montgomery, you're going to stop this nonsense right now. This little game with the employee has gone on long enough. It's time for you to step up. My responsibilities don't include marrying someone I don't love." "Love?" Eleanor laughed, but it was a cold, sharp sound. "Love is a luxury, Alexander. Business is a necessity, and if you can't understand that—" "What? You'll disown me?" "I'll withdraw the family's support from the company. I'll sell my shares. I'll use all my influence to make sure no serious investor does business with you." The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander looked at his mother, then at Victoria, and realized they weren't bluffing. "You're serious." "Completely," Eleanor confirmed. "Choose, Alexander, your family and your future, or a romantic whim that won't last 3 months." Just outside the dining room, Mia was cleaning the hall when she heard the conversation. Every word felt like a punch to the gut. She had always known this day would come. Deep down, she knew. Alexander Montgomery belonged to a world where marriages were business deals, where love came after profit, where people like her were nothing more than temporary distractions. Victoria kept speaking. "Alexander, be reasonable. We've known each other for years. We're socially compatible, we share common interests, and our union would benefit both families. This phase you're going through is understandable, but it has to end." "It's not a phase." "Of course it is," Eleanor said. "You're confusing novelty with passion. That's normal for a man your age, but now it's time to grow up." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "I need to think." "There's nothing to think about," Victoria said. "It's the obvious choice." "I still need time," he replied. Eleanor stood up. "You have until Monday. If we don't have an answer by then, I'll assume you've chosen irresponsibility, and I'll act accordingly." After they left, Alexander remained alone in the dining room, staring out the window without really seeing anything. $50 million. The company he had built from the ground up, the family legacy. All of it depended on a decision he didn't want to make. Later that day, Alexander locked himself in the office to work, but he couldn't concentrate. Every spreadsheet he opened, every report he tried to read, everything reminded him of his mother's threat. Without the family's support, he could lose everything. The company would face serious trouble. Hundreds of employees could lose their jobs. And for what? For a cleaning woman who wasn't even sure she wanted to be with him? Around 6 in the evening, he was almost convinced Eleanor was right. Maybe he was being immature. Maybe an arranged marriage wasn't so bad. Maybe. Mia appeared in the doorway. "Can I come in?" "Of course." She walked up to his desk but didn't sit. "I heard the conversation this morning." Alexander sighed. "Mia? No, let me speak first. I understand the situation. I understand that you have responsibilities, that the company matters, that your family has expectations. And there is no and. I just wanted to say, if you decide to marry Victoria, I get it, really." Alexander looked at her, surprised. "You get it? Yes, you've got an empire to protect, people who depend on you. That's a lot to risk over whatever this is between us. Mia, what we have is complicated, and maybe not enough to be worth all this trouble." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Just be happy, okay? However you can." That night, Mia finished her shift and went to her room. She knew she wouldn't be able to sleep, so she sat at the small desk and took out a sheet of paper. For an hour, she wrote and erased, wrote and erased. Finally, she managed to put everything she wanted to say into words. When she was done, She folded the letter carefully and went up to Alexander's room. The door was closed, but she could see light under the crack. He was still awake. She slipped the letter under the door and went back to her room. 2 hours later, Alexander found the letter as he was getting ready for bed. He recognized Mia's handwriting right away. Alexander, when I was little, my mom always said, life is made of choices. Some are easy, others are impossible. But in the end, you have to be able to look in the mirror and like the person you see. I know you're in a tough spot. I know your family is pressuring you, that the company is on the line, and that it's all much more complicated than I can fully understand. That's why I've decided to make things easier for you. I'm leaving tomorrow morning, not because I'm angry or hurt, but because you need to make this decision without worrying about me. You need to choose what's best for your life, not what you think I want to hear. If you choose Victoria and the life your family wants for you, I'll understand, truly. I won't hold a grudge. I'll even hope the two of you find happiness. But if you choose another path, if you decide to fight for what you truly want, then come find me, because I'll be waiting. Just one thing, Alex. Choose you first. For the first time in your life, make a choice that's yours. Not your mother's, not the company's, not based on what people will say. Yours. You deserve to be happy, in whatever way you choose. Thank you for everything. Mia P.S. That new toaster you bought? It's working perfectly. No repairs needed. Alexander read the letter 3 times. Then he sat on the edge of his bed and put his head in his hands. Mia was leaving. To make things easier for him, so he could make a decision without guilt. She was protecting him, even if it meant walking away. And at that moment, Alexander Montgomery knew exactly what he had to do. For the first time in his life, he was going to choose for himself. And he hoped it wasn't too late. Alexander didn't sleep at all Friday night. At 5 in the morning on Saturday, he was still awake, reading Mia's letter for the 10th time. By 7, he had made the decision that would change his life forever. At 8, he called James, his assistant. James, I need you to cancel all my appointments for today and reschedule the meeting with the Japanese investors for Monday, 10 a.m. main conference room. Sir, but the meeting with the Japanese team wasn't until Tuesday. Change of plans. And James, I want you to invite my mother, Victoria Sterling, and all the board members. Tell them it's about the future of the company. It's urgent. Yes, sir. Anything else? Yes. Don't let Mia leave today. If she tries to go, come up with any excuse. Say there's a cleaning emergency or something. Sir? Just trust me. On Saturday morning, Mia woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. She had planned to leave early, before Alexander woke up, to avoid any awkward goodbyes. But when she went down to the kitchen, she found James waiting for her. Mia, glad you're here early. We've got an emergency. What kind of emergency? Mr. Montgomery's meeting with Japanese investors on Monday, and apparently the cleaning service canceled last minute. He specifically asked for you to handle the conference room. Mia sighed. Of course, there'd be one last task. All right, where is this room? 20th floor of the Montgomery Tech Building. I'll give you the address. Monday came with a cloudy Chicago sky. Mia had been in the conference room since 8 in the morning, making sure every detail was perfect. It was an impressive room, with a giant mahogany table, leather chairs, and a panoramic view of the city. At 9:40, she was finishing polishing the table when she heard voices in the hallway. A lot of voices. That's odd, she murmured. I thought it was just the Japanese investors. She was putting away the cleaning supplies when the door opened and people began to walk in, but they weren't Japanese. It was Eleanor Montgomery, Victoria Sterling, several men in suits she didn't recognize, and Mia, Eleanor said, clearly surprised. What are you doing here? I was cleaning for the meeting. Victoria looked her up and down. Alexander invited the cleaning lady to a business meeting? Before Mia could respond, Alexander walked into the room. He wore his best suit, but there was something different in his eyes. Determination. Nerves. And when he saw Mia, relief. Perfect. Everyone's here. Alexander, Eleanor said, why is the employee still here? The meeting is about to begin. Actually, Mother, she needs to stay. This meeting is about her. Mia felt the blood drain from her face. Alexander, what are you doing? What I should have done weeks ago. He took his place at the head of the table, looking around at everyone present. Thank you all for coming. I know I called this meeting last minute, but I needed to speak to you about the future of Montgomery Tech, and about my future." Eleanor frowned. "Alexander, if this is about the marriage proposal, we've already discussed it. It's exactly about that, and about much more." Alexander took a deep breath. "For years you've told me what to do, how to act, who to marry, and I went along with it because I thought it was the right thing, because I thought family and business mattered more than personal happiness." Victoria shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "But I was wrong. Not about family being important, not about the company being a priority, but about sacrificing who I am for who you all think I should be." He looked directly at Mia, who was leaning against the wall, clearly wishing she could disappear. "A few weeks ago, an incredible woman came into my life and changed everything. She made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. She made me question things I'd always accepted. She made me want to be a better version of myself." "Alexander," Eleanor murmured, starting to see where this was going. "She's brave when I'm afraid. She's real when I'm pretending. She's loyal when I'm selfish. And she loves me not in spite of my flaws, but with them." Mia felt tears sting her eyes. "And I've realized I love her too. More than I ever thought I could love anyone." Victoria stood up suddenly. "Alexander, you've completely lost your mind." "No, Victoria. I've finally found it." He walked over to Mia, who stood frozen, tears in her eyes and still holding a cleaning cloth like it might protect her. "Mia Gonzalez, you walked into my life when I least expected it and turned everything upside down. You taught me that love isn't about convenience. You taught me that family isn't just blood, it's who chooses to stay. You taught me that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is choose to be happy." Eleanor tried to cut in. "Alexander, this is absurd. You can't possibly." "Yes, I can, and I will." Alexander dropped to one knee, right there in the conference room, in front of everyone. "Before I go any further, Mia, will you marry me?" The silence that followed was absolute. Mia looked at him kneeling on the floor, then at everyone in the room staring at her, then back at him. "You're out of your mind," she whispered. "Completely. So, would you marry a crazy man?" The tears Mia had been holding in finally fell. "Alexander, are you sure? Your family, your company, they'll have to accept me the way I am, with the choices I've made. Mia, I don't want a life without you. I don't want to wake up in an empty mansion. I don't want formal dinners where no one really laughs. I want you. Only you." Mia looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. "Yes, you crazy man, but you're doing the dishes too." The room burst into noise. Some board members clapped, others looked stunned. Eleanor was speechless. Victoria had already stormed out, slamming the door. Alexander stood up and kissed Mia right there, in front of everyone. And she kissed him back, not caring about her cleaning uniform, not caring who was watching, not caring about anything else. When they pulled away, he whispered, "I made my choice. Finally, I chose for myself." "And you chose well," she said, smiling through her tears. One of the board members cleared his throat. "Well, that was unexpected. But what about the company and the sterling investment?" Alexander turned around, still holding Mia's hand. "We'll find other investors. We'll grow at our own pace. And if that means starting smaller, starting over, that's okay. At least I'll be doing it with the person I chose, not the one you chose for me." Eleanor finally found her voice. "Alexander, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life, Mother, and I hope with time you'll understand." He looked at Mia. "Ready for an interesting life? With you? It'll definitely be an adventure." And so on the 20th floor of a corporate office, Alexander Montgomery chose love over convenience, happiness over obligation, and Mia Gonzalez over anyone else in the world. And they both knew he'd made the right choice. Victoria Sterling was not the kind of woman who accepted defeat with grace. 3 days after Alexander's public proposal, she was in her office putting a plan in motion that would make Montgomery Tech regret ever turning her down. For years, she'd had access to inside information through Eleanor. Negotiations, market strategies, prototype codes not yet patented. Information that, in the right hands, could destroy everything Alexander had built. On Thursday morning, she made 3 phone calls. One to an investigative journalist known for exposing corporate scandals, another to Montgomery Tech's biggest competitor, and the third to a hacker who owed the Sterling family a few favors. I want everything leaked, she told the journalist. Business strategies, prototypes and development, confidential contracts, everything. By 2 p.m., the first bomb went off. TechScoop published a devastating article, Montgomery Tech, Questionable Practices and Industrial Secrets Exposed. The report revealed intimate details about upcoming product launches, confidential contracts, and even hinted at unethical practices. None of which were true, but all sounded believable. Alexander was in a meeting with the marketing team when James rushed into the room. Sir, we have a problem. A big one. Within 2 hours, Montgomery Tech stock had dropped 20%. 3 major contracts were canceled. Investors began calling, demanding answers. How did this leak? Alexander asked, staring at the reports spread across the table. This was all confidential. Sir, said Sarah, the head of security, someone with internal access did this. Someone who knew our protocols. Alexander didn't need to be a genius to know who it was. At that same moment, Mia was in the mansion kitchen preparing dinner when Victoria appeared in the doorway. She wore a red dress and a smile that spelled trouble. Hello, Mia. I assume you've seen the news? Mia turned, still holding the knife she'd been using to chop vegetables. What news? About your fiancé's company going down the drain. What a shame. Looks like choosing love over logic has its consequences. It was you. Me? Victoria feigned surprise. I simply shared information that was within my reach, information a smart person would have protected more carefully. Mia set the knife down on the cutting board and turned fully to face her. You took down an entire company because you couldn't handle rejection. I protected my interests, and I showed Alexander what happens when you choose the wrong person. The wrong person? Mia laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Victoria, do you want to know the difference between you and me? Enlighten me. When things get hard, I roll up my sleeves and fix them. You burn everything down and blame someone else. What a touching philosophy. Unfortunately, it won't save the company. Mia walked toward Victoria with a calmness that didn't match the storm in her eyes. You're right. Philosophy doesn't save a company. But do you know what does? People who genuinely care. People who work together. People who don't give up when things get hard. And you think you and Alexander can? Me and Alexander, along with every employee who believes in this company. Yes. Because you made a mistake, Victoria. What mistake? You thought that by destroying the company you'd destroy what we have, but you forgot one thing. Real relationships get stronger in hard times, not weaker. Victoria stepped back. We'll see. Yes, we will. And when you do, you'll realize you threw away the chance to be part of something special, all because your pride was hurt. After Victoria left, Mia called Alexander. Love, where are you? At the office, trying to put out fires. I'm coming over, and I'm bringing reinforcements. What reinforcements? You'll see. An hour later, Mia arrived at Montgomery Tech with an unexpected group. Donna and 3 other cleaning staff, Carlos the gardener, Miguel the doorman, and 6 others who worked in roles the corporate elite rarely noticed. What are you all doing here? Alexander asked, surprised. Saving the company, Mia replied. Donna has a degree in accounting. Carlos studied engineering before becoming a gardener. Miguel worked in marketing for 15 years before he was let go because of his age, and it goes on. Mia, I don't understand. Alexander, you've always seen these people as support staff, but they're much more than that. They're untapped talent who can help rebuild everything. Sarah, the head of security, stepped forward. Sir, with all due respect, we need every hand we can get. Things are critical. Alexander looked around. His executive team seemed discouraged. Some board members had already suggested selling the company, but here was Mia, standing with a team of people nobody ever noticed, offering to help. All right, he said. What's your plan? Donna stepped forward. First, we'll review all contracts and find legal gaps to stop the leaks. Second, Miguel will work on a marketing campaign to restore our image. Third, Carlos will review our prototypes and suggest technical improvements. And I, said Mia, will coordinate everything and make sure you all have the support you need. For the next 48 hours, Montgomery Tech was a hive of activity. Executives worked side by side with janitors. Managers picked up efficiency tips from doormen. The strict hierarchy dissolved, replaced by real collaboration. Miguel created a campaign called The Real Montgomery, that featured actual employees, their stories, and their contributions. Donna found inconsistencies in the leaked data that proved malicious tampering. Carlos suggested 3 upgrades to the prototypes that made them even better than the versions that had been leaked. Alexander worked harder than he ever had in his life, and for the first time, he wasn't alone at the top. Mia was right there with him, organizing, motivating, solving problems with an efficiency that impressed even the most seasoned managers. On Saturday night, as the final touches to the recovery campaign were being finished, Eleanor showed up at the office. She found Alexander and Mia laughing together while going over the marketing materials, surrounded by their newly formed team that felt more like family. "How are things going?" Eleanor asked hesitantly. "Better than I expected," Alexander replied. "We're going to come out of this stronger." Eleanor watched Mia explaining something to Donna, using her hands, making everyone laugh. She noticed the way Alexander looked at her, more relaxed and happier than she'd seen him in years. "She got all these people to help you?" "Yes, people I didn't even know had these kinds of skills." Eleanor was quiet for a moment. "Alexander?" "Yes, Mom?" "Maybe she is the right woman." Alexander smiled. "I already know she is, and maybe you're smarter than I thought." "I learned from the best," he said, looking at Mia. "No, son, you learned with your heart. That's something I never knew how to teach." At that moment, Mia came over to them. "Eleanor, I'm so glad you're here. Want to see how the new campaign is shaping up?" And for the first time, Eleanor gave Mia a genuine smile. "I'd love to." Montgomery Tech didn't just survive Victoria's attack. It came out stronger, more united, and with a new philosophy. Talent doesn't have a social class, and the best teams are the ones where everyone matters. And Victoria Sterling? She watched everything from afar, realizing too late that she had lost much more than a fiancé. She had lost the chance to be part of something truly special. 6 months after the most unexpected proposal in Chicago's corporate history, Alexander Montgomery stood before a makeshift altar by Lake Michigan, adjusting his tie for the 10th time in 5 minutes. "Stop fiddling with your tie," muttered James, standing beside him as his best man. "You're going to ruin the knot." "I'm nervous," Alexander admitted, looking at the guests settling into white chairs set up on the grass. "What if she changes her mind? What if she realizes she can do better?" "Alexander, she organized a whole team to save your company. I don't think she's going to stand you up at the altar." Across the lake, in a wooden cabin serving as an improvised dressing room, Mia was having her own nervous moment. "Mom, isn't this dress too simple?" she asked, looking in the mirror. She had chosen a white cotton dress, with no sparkles or elaborate embroidery, that flowed gently to her ankles. Carmen adjusted her daughter's delicate veil. "Sweetheart, you look radiant, and besides, Alexander isn't marrying the dress, he's marrying you." "Are you sure we shouldn't have done something more grand?" Donna, helping with the last touches of makeup, laughed. "Mia, you're doing this exactly the way you are. Simple, real, and full of love. It's perfect." Nico appeared at the door, looking sharp in a borrowed suit, but wearing a smile worth $1 million. "Ready, sis? The groom looks like he's going to faint if you take any longer." Meanwhile, the guests settled in a mix never seen before at Chicago's high society weddings. In the front row, Eleanor Montgomery sat next to Carmen Gonzalez, the two animatedly discussing family recipes. Right behind them, Montgomery Tech executives shared space with cleaning staff, gardeners, and doormen, all dressed in their best clothes. Sarah, the security manager, was explaining to Miguel, the former doorman now leading the marketing department, how she had come to know the groom. "I worked with him for 5 years and never saw him smile as much as he has these past few months," she said. In the third row, 3 board members whispered about how the company had doubled in value since Alexander embraced operational diversity, as they pompously called his realization that smart people exist at every level of the hierarchy. The violinist, a local musician who played in the park on weekends, started playing and everyone stood. Alexander turned and felt his heart stop. Mia was walking toward the altar on Nico's arm, who had insisted on escorting her in place of their father, who had abandoned them. She smiled that smile that had captured Alexander from day one, but there was something different now. A calmness, a deep happiness that made her practically glow. When they reached the altar, Nico kissed his sister's forehead and whispered, "Be happy, sis. You deserve it." He shook Alexander's hand firmly. "Take good care of her, or I'll come after you." "Don't worry," Alexander replied, unable to take his eyes off Mia. The pastor, a young and friendly man Alexander had found while researching casual weddings, smiled at the couple. "Welcome everyone to this special moment." Alexander and Mia chose to celebrate their love here, outdoors, surrounded by the people who matter most to them. And before we officially begin, they'd like to say a few words. Alexander took a deep breath. "Mia, 6 months ago you came into my life and turned everything upside down. You taught me that family isn't just about sharing a last name, but about who chooses to stay when things get hard. You taught me that success isn't about having more money, but having people who truly care. And you taught me that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is be vulnerable." He swallowed hard, feeling tears sting his eyes. "You came into my life like a hurricane, destroying all my certainties, and I'm grateful for it every day, because now I know what it means to wake up every day wanting to be a better person." Some people in the audience were already crying. Eleanor discreetly wiped her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Mia smiled through her own tears. "Alexander, you're the most stubborn, controlling, and complicated person I've ever met," she began, causing laughter in the crowd. "But you're also the most loyal, generous, and funny. You made me believe fairy tales exist, just not the way we see in the movies." She held his hands firmly. "You taught me that love isn't about agreeing on everything, but about choosing to fight the world together when it's needed. You showed me that sometimes the right person shows up at the most unexpected time, in the most unlikely place. And you taught me that it's worth taking risks when it's for something that really matters." "Now," said the pastor, "let's get to the rings." James handed over the simple gold rings they had picked out together at a small jewelry store downtown, far from the fancy shops Eleanor had suggested. "Alexander, do you take Mia to be your wife, promising to love, respect, and support her through all of life's moments?" "I do," Alexander said, his voice breaking with emotion. "Mia, do you take Alexander to be your husband, promising to love, respect, and support him through all of life's moments?" "I do," she replied, slipping the ring onto his finger with hands that trembled slightly. "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Alexander, you may kiss the bride." The kiss was long, passionate, and full of promises. The crowd burst into applause, cheers, and whistles. Donna shouted, "Finally," loud enough to scare the seagulls by the lake, but the surprise came when they pulled apart. Mia took a small bag of rice from her bouquet and poured it at Alexander's feet. "What are you doing?" he asked, laughing. "It's a family tradition," she explained. "Rice means prosperity, and it also means you're still my boss. But now I'm in charge of the heart of the company." Alexander laughed out loud and kissed her again. "Always in charge, huh?" "Always." The celebration that followed was a wonderful mix of cultures, social classes, and traditions. The band played everything from classical waltzes to Latin salsa. Eleanor danced with Carlos the gardener and found out he was a great partner. Carmen taught merengue steps to 3 suited executives who had more fun than they had in years. Mia and Alexander opened the dance with a simple waltz, but soon they were surrounded by all the guests in a group dance that mixed elegance with relaxation. "Happy?" Alexander asked, spinning Mia as everyone clapped. "Happier than happy. Complete. Even knowing you'll have to put up with me every day? Especially knowing that." When the music ended and they kissed once more, under the golden sunset over Lake Michigan, surrounded by people who truly loved them, Alexander Montgomery and Mia Gonzalez Montgomery knew they had found something rarer than any fortune. They had found each other.